This is Tyrese Haliburton, and you're listening to Setting the Pace.
Facci, we have made it to the final day of our free agency preview by position. We're going to close things out here on this wonderful Friday, talking about the centers for the Indiana Pacers to potentially target in free agency. But before we get to all of that, how do you feel so far about the list we've gone through? Any names intriguing to you, or do you feel like it's a little bit of a mediocre group of guys?
This is not the offseason to have a lot of cap space. It's really not. I think
We
that,
don't have any.
Yeah, I know, but I'm just saying, like, for the teams that do, I mean, if you're Brooklyn, like, what are you doing with that money? I mean, seriously, like, they are gonna have to almost be like a facilitator to take on contracts. Like that's definitely gonna have to be something that they're doing because who are you really gonna be throwing money at? So I also think that maybe this is the time where it's probably good to not have Bennett Mathurin as a restricted free agent because he sticks out
Yeah.
amongst a group of not as talented players. So I do think that if you have a lot of money, Mathurin is probably someone that you're going to have your eyes on, looking to spend it on. But it's been a mixed bag. A couple players seem like, okay, hey, I could definitely sell myself on that. A couple players you probably say, you know what, I wouldn't mind if we passed on that guy just because he could be a little bit too old, or maybe more of just a veteran presence.
Yeah, I mean, there's a handful of names out there that I would like be okay if the Pacers brought in, but I don't want them just to spend money to spend money. I mean, there's people like I was laughing. People are like, I listened to your point guard episode, and this is why I want Quentin Jackson instead. I'm like, I get it. I get it. It's not like we were going out there throwing out great names, but I think Q's more of a backup too. I think he's more of a third string shooting guard than he is a point guard, but could play some point. I mean, that's just my point. That's just my opinion on that. But we're gonna talk about centers, and we did a lot of talking about centers throughout this season. Did a whole entire mini series called Center of Attention as we were waiting.
That was good though. That was fun, and honestly, in the end, we got one of our, if not our top guy.
It was our top guy. I mean,
yeah. So
what's really funny is like the Ivica Zubac, like once Turner left, that kind of became the guy. I remember when,
yes,
and I mean, I apologize to you for this off air because I mean, I was just a complete jerk during this episode.
Ooh.
But we had young Simba on, and we were talking trade ideas for centers. And I threw out the Zubac trade. I said, what do you think about Mathurin Jackson and 2 first for Zubac? And that was what I threw out in like July last year. And we were like, I like Zubac. That's what everybody kept saying. And then we talked about it more and more. And I'm like, man, we were kind of on this. I mean, I think the Pacers going after Zubac was a little bit of a surprise to us. Maybe we thought it was more of a pipe dream.
That's what I think. Yeah.
We probably were like, hey, this is the guy to go out there and get, but we don't think it's realistic. Like we were more like selling ourselves on who's the center down in Daniel Gafford. I always want to say Drew Gooden because of the DGs.
Yeah, I know what you're getting at. Daniel Gafford is such a consolation prize. Like it really, like we would have been like, oh yeah, hey, we would have still been like, we still need a starting center, like, all right, he's good, but like I just feel like on any given night his game would have been analyzed as like he's good, but he's not great. The Pacers would have given up less to be able to get him, but in the end, like we just need to see Zubac with this starting 5, and we will immediately be excited and feel like we have championship aspirations again. I'm confident.
Yeah. And we'll dive more into this roster as this offseason continues to move on. We're just really looking at team building right now because it feels like it's the most topical thing as we get closer and closer to the draft and free agency, and everybody just wants to know like what names are out there, what are we thinking, what are other people thinking. So, our opinion is not gold. Our opinion is just our thoughts. And so we want to discuss it with you. And if you disagree, that's great. Let us know what you think in the comment section, but don't just be like, oh, that's gross. Tell me why it's gross. I want to know the details. I want to know why you don't like the players we're talking about. But Facci, let's go ahead and get things started off here today with our top 5 centers list. Who do you have at number 5?
At number 5, I brought this man up for years. He's actually somehow like younger than people think because I think he's just been around forever. That's Andre Drummond. Look, an unrestricted free agent who has been locked into basically being a minimum contract guy. He just played for $5 million last year in Philly, and I just feel like that ship has kind of sailed. He's been there for a couple of years. The man can still rebound. He's honestly one of the most gifted rebounders I think the league's seen, at least in the last 25 years. I saw he's in the top 25 in rebounding, and after this year, he'll basically be a top 20 rebounder of all time with a much reduced role over the last handful of years. But I don't want to count on it. but he kind of somewhat evolved into a little bit of a three-point shooter. I don't want to be like saying like, give it a Drummond and let it rip, but he had 23 made threes in his first like 15 seasons in the league, and all of a sudden he made 32 threes, shot about 36%. I'm not saying that we need that out of him, but it's good to know that he's at least working on his game to evolve. I've always had that soft spot for Andre Drummond because I respect his rebounding capabilities. So if the Pacers are able to get Drummond on a minimum contract as a backup center, honestly, I really like it.
So he was on my honorable mentions. He
Okay.
did not make my list.
He's number 5 on mine, so we're not too far off.
Yeah, I thought about it. I really debated, and that's why I had to put honorable mentions on mine because I was like, there's so many guys I like.
Yeah.
What's really interesting, Facci, is the three-point shooting. I mean, he took 93s last year and shot 36%. I mean, it feels like it's kind of real.
Yeah.
Last year in the playoffs, he went 4 of 6 against the Celtics from 3 and 0 of 2 against the Knicks. He kind of got played off the floor against New York. And I think that, to me, is what scared me away from him just a little bit, because I do think that there is this world where he could get played off the floor. And I'm just like, how much can I trust him? But if you listen to some of the other centers I have, you're going to be like, well, if you're putting them on there, why not put Drummond on there? So, but I mean, he had 4.7 points per game, but he played 15.3 minutes against the Celtics, but just 8.8 against the Knicks in the 4-game sweep. And so, I like him. I just wonder fit-wise if he makes sense, but 280 pounds, 6'11", like you can't have enough of that on your team, and just having a bruiser that knows what his role is. I think that matters. Like, he is one of those guys that's like a former All-Star and former rebound champion that has accepted that he is a backup now and doesn't really seem to like care that much. He just wants to be a good teammate and go out there and play basketball and do what he can to help win.
Yeah, and people forget there was a time where he was literally the Pistons franchise player and was like honestly heading towards like a super max. And I feel like he probably would have been like one of the worst players to get like a super max contract. Like, it would have been a huge mistake. But he was like the guy staring at like, hey, you might get this like ridiculously expensive contract, or it's the exact opposite. And he has now just gone through a bunch of different teams in the league on that like $5 million or less. And I just feel like he very much could be had, probably wants to win. I think winning it is something that's probably important to him, but you don't overpay for a player like Andre Drummond. If it's $5 million, that's what it is. You don't really want to go, much higher than that. And I got him at number 5 on my list. You got him honorable mention. So who do you got number 5?
Yeah, real quick, I won't spend too much time on him. It's Mo Wagner with the Orlando Magic, 29.
He was my honorable mention.
Okay, perfect. So we're just flip-flop there. Look, I mean, before he went down with the ACL injury, he was on fire, Foch. I mean, 56.2% from the field, 36% from 3, shooting a career best 12.9 points off the bench in 18.8 minutes. Like, he was really playing at a high level. But last year, came back in the middle of the season, really never seemed comfortable. The whole entire Magic team, I kind of felt, was just up and down offensively last year. He's been much, much better next to his brother Franz than, some of the other lineups, which I wonder if that plays a factor or not. But when you miss 13 months after having a torn left ACL, that is going to take some time to get back from. So the fact that he's 29, the fact that he's still relatively young in terms of like some of these centers we're going to be talking about today, I like him. Last year's stats were not impressive at all. I mean, really took a dip from what he did the previous year, but I still think there's something there, and he was only making $5 million last year. So the best version of Mo Wagner, to me, is a massive upgrade over Huff or Potter. I mean, this guy is like annoying to play against. I mean, whenever I watch the Pacers play against the Magic and he's out there on the court, I'm like, get this guy with this stupid headband off the court, because he's always taking charges. He's diving on the floor for loose balls. He's gonna talk a lot. He's gonna be loud and aggressive and vocal. For me, I kind of like players like that to be on my team and not have to go against them. And as a depth piece, I think it's an intriguing name, but I think there's better names than him.
I do think there's better names. I just thought to myself, like, how likely is he to leave Orlando? This is, like you mentioned, with his brother there. Like, that's a very unique situation. I just felt like in order for the Pacers to be able to land him, they definitely have to pay up. And I'm just like, I think there might be a little bit better options out there. Maybe are a little bit more cost effective, I'll say.
Mm-hmm. All right, who do you have number 4?
So number 4, this is where I got Vucevic. Big Vooch. We talked about him somewhat recently, but I just feel like if we're talking about Vooch for about $5 million or less, I think it's a really good signing. Look, he's definitely not the all-star of the past, no doubt about it. The defense is sketch. He's totally slow, but he can stretch the floor. He can still rebound. I think that this is someone that you obviously saw his stats drop off with Boston, where that's a team trying to win compared to Chicago, which you and I talked about it years ago. The Vooch extension was like one of the dumbest moves in Chicago. Like when they re-upped with him, that was when it was like, I don't think this team's serious. Like this was their opportunity to get out of that. And I feel like the second the ink dried on that, it was like he was just withering away on a team that was never winning anything. But regardless, before he got traded to, before whatever, got moved from Chicago, he was averaging 17 points per game and 9 boards. Still a gifted passer for his size, about 4 assists per game. Shot the three ball about 38% in that stint with Chicago. Like I said, all of his numbers and role dropped off with the Boston Celtics. But if you're asking the guy to play 15 to 20 minutes as a backup center, I still feel like that's a pretty good value if you're talking about $5 million or less.
Yeah, I had a number 3 on my list, so
Okay,
we're kind
cool.
of right there again. A lot of the reasons you brought up, I can't really add anything else to it, or I would just be kind of like overkilling
Yeah.
the point. But I don't know if I would say $5 million, how much I'd pay him. I think more closer to the veteran minimum. I think that's what he's going to get.
I
I just
don't
don't
know
see a
what
lot
the
of teams
vet
paying
minimum
him.
is for where he's at based on his experience.
Yeah, I
So,
think he's around like 3.9, whatever that is. Whatever the highest you can make as a vet minimum is really close to 5 million. It's probably like a
yeah.
million less. I don't really see a team that's going to have that kind of money, or like, hey, we're going to use part of our mid-level exception on you, unless it's like a team that's already loaded that just has that. I know that there's people that are talking about Orlando potentially going after him as kind of a reunion with Vooch, bring him back to play behind some of the guys they have there already. There's been talks about Jonathan Isaac being on the move, so that can make some sense. But for the Pacers, I think he's a way better upgrade than Huff or Potter.
Yeah, totally.
I mean,
Totally.
especially for the regular season. Now, I do get worried about the playoffs because
Yeah.
I'm always thinking playoff and like, can this guy get played off the floor? And I think there's a world where he can. He might be a guy that's more of like a first half kind of guy, but you can't play him in the second half. And then as the season or as the postseason like prolongs, like this is a guy you cut out of the rotation just because he can't keep up. I mean, this year against the 76ers, he got cut from the Celtics rotation, but he also was dealing with a fractured right ring finger. I think that's obviously something that should be worth noting because look, if the guy can't rebound the basketball without being in pain and can't shoot the ball as well, then there's reason not to play him. But I think your point about him being a good passer and a good offensive
Yeah.
connector, as well as a screener, rebounder, like he's very elite at those kind of things. Even for his age, a minimum role, he's got to be a minimum backup moving forward for the rest of his career. He cannot be a starter for a team that's trying to win. And if a
No.
team does want to start him, they're going to be in a lot of trouble. I mean, I had Jay Huff and Isaiah Jackson ranked higher than Vooch last year when I was doing my center rankings with David Cole and Carson Stafford on the centers. I don't agree with my ranking anymore,
Yeah.
but I
Yeah.
didn't have Vooch as high as David. I think David had him like number 4 in the East, and I was like, okay, hold on,
That's a little wild. Yeah.
somewhere in the middle though. I think like 10, 12 probably,
Yeah,
but
I
like
mean, he's
still,
just older now. He's like 35, 36 years
that was
old,
my whole
so
point.
yeah. So the vet minimum is gonna be 3.8 million, almost 3.9. So like that's where I see him at. So when I said five or less, like we were talking about, like basically splitting hairs, like say $4 million essentially. So that's what I think he's looking at. I don't think he signs for more than that unless he's not prioritizing winning. But if
Yeah.
you can get him for that contract, I mean that's fantastic for a guy that was making like $20 million last year.
For sure. All right, who did you have at number 3?
So at number 3, this is where I messed everything up, and this is where I have Mamu. So Sandro Mama, let me get a good crack
Try
at
it.
this. Mamu Kalashvili. I obviously didn't do that right, but look, it's a mouthful. It really is.
I
So
love it, Vach.
for Mamu, look, the guy has game. Yeah, we brought him up last episode as a power forward, probably more of a power forward that can also play the 5. But player option for $2.8 million. Rip that up, tear it up, toss it out the window. That man hopefully plays his last game in Toronto, unless they're gonna back up the Brinks trucks for him and at least double that contract, if not triple it. 11-5 on 52% shooting and 39% from 3. I think he's fantastic. I think he's someone that's been around the block for a bit, been in the league probably a little bit longer than people realize. But this is the type of guy that I think a lot of teams are going to say, hey, with an expanded role, I think he could be somebody. Last year, he played about 22 minutes per game. That was really only that was the first time in a season that he averaged, really honestly over about 11 minutes per game, or I guess he used 2 different stints with, like, the Bucks and the Spurs, but nonetheless, bigger role, bigger opportunity, bigger production. He was, I don't wanna call him a hidden gem, but honestly, one of the brighter spots for Toronto off the bench.
The pride of Seton Hall, baby. So,
Hey,
honestly, like, no, he's such a fascinating player, and we actually talked about him on our Center of Attention podcast because the Toronto Raptors only had Jakob and Mamu as their centers last year. Now, they played a lot of, like, Colin Murray-Boyles at the 5. They played Scotty Barnes at the 5. Like, they were just going a lot of, like, 4 wing lineups with a guard and just trying to kind of, like, masquerade centers out there to fill that role with wings playing center. And so, I think that they're going to be looking in the center department to try to improve that. I think they have the 19th overall pick in the NBA draft, and there's a lot of centers in that range that could make some sense for them to invest in. I'm sure they're looking to try to find a way to get off that Jakob contract. That still the extension doesn't even kick in this season.
which is crazy.
So,
Crazy.
it really just kind of like set the bar for what Miles Turner was looking for when he got that
I
contract
know.
extension. And he's not as good as Turner, even though he did have his way with Turner at times because he's a different player. But yeah, I honestly, like, I love Sandro, and I would love to see him on a team that he can really compete and help because he can shoot the ball well. Great cutter, great finisher around the rim, solid defender. Like, there's so much to like about him. And if the Pacers got him, whether he's playing center or forward or whatever, I'm all in. I mean, he is, to me, an upgrade over Huff and Potter,
No doubt.
but he is undersized. And that is the only problem that you would have a little bit with him is just like, against a certain type of matchups, he does not work, right? That's the only,
Huff's definitely got a lot more size.
yeah,
No doubt.
Limited options there with him. Limitations, I guess you could say, to his game. Now, for me, the next player on my list is somebody I actually had at number 4. I'll talk about him quickly, is Jock Landale, with the Atlanta Hawks, 30 years old. He was with the Memphis Grizzlies this season, and remember, the Pacers were able to acquire Jay Huff because the Grizzlies said, we don't want Jay Huff, we want your 2 second-round picks, and we're going to go sign Jock Landale. Then when they kind of blew their team up, they included him in a trade that sent him to the Atlanta Hawks. And this is a guy that has really shot the ball pretty well from three, Facci. I mean, depending on where you look at, I mean, the last 2 seasons, he shot 42% with Houston from 3 and then 38.3% between stops with Memphis and Atlanta. So if you're looking for some three-point shooting, that makes sense. 51.5% from the field, 10.6 points, 5.7 rebounds, 1.7 assists. Like, this is just a solid big that is athletically better than what the Pacers currently have for their backups. I mean, he's not someone that's going to be able to switch and guard a bunch of different guards and wings and things like that. He's more of a drop coverage. He prefers to play drop coverage similar to Zubac, but he's more athletic. He'll dunk the ball. I like things about his game. But I will say, like, if Memphis was willing to replace Jay Huff with him, that means I'm sure other teams probably feel that he's better too. So I like him. I think he's a very cheap potential third center, second center. I would feel better about him backing up Zoo than I would with Jay Huff.
He's the next man on my list. Jock Landale, I am a fan. He is number 2 on my list. One of the things that I love the most is when he got traded to Atlanta, they said it was like he wasn't expected to play. He's like, I want to get on the I'll be there right now. And I think he got in the car and drove there. It was something crazy where no one expected him to show up, and that night he just balled out. So I do think that Jock Landale is going to be someone that's going to have some suitors in free agency. I don't know. It's hard to put a number on what he could make because his stats are a little bit, you don't know if it's misleading on being on, a bad Memphis team or what he did with Atlanta, but I am a believer. I'm a fan. And I think that as a backup, I'm really, enticed. I would definitely love in a heartbeat. I would rather have him over Micah Potter. And I know that both can stretch the floor and shoot. I just trust Jock Landale a little bit more in that instance. And I think from the field, I mean, this is a guy who shoots 51% or better in his sleep. That is literally, he is accurate from the field, from 3. A decent rebounder. I would really love me some Jock Landale.
All right. I don't know who your number 1 is, but my number 2 might be your number 1. I don't know. I'm curious which way you're going to go. But for number 2, I'm going to the Utah Jazz.
Okay.
And he's 31 years old. He's been a little bit of a journeyman the last couple of years, but I'm talking about a big guy right here, and that's Jusuf Nurkic.
Okay.
Double-digit last year in terms of 10.9 points, 10.4 rebounds, 4.8 assist spots. So similar to Vooch, he can kind of pass the ball in that short roll and just be an offensive connector. 50.3% from the field, 35.2% from three. Not a great free throw shooter, which is interesting that he was able to kind of hit his three-point shot at 35%, even though it wasn't a limited amount of numbers. He didn't play a lot this year because he did have an injury that he suffered throughout the season, but then again, Utah was just kind of making over their whole entire roster. Now, I don't know what he's going to do in free agency because I think there's a world where he could start somewhere, and that is the only reason I was kind of like, should I put him on this list or not? But I think he would be a terrific backup to Zoo, and it would almost kind of be very similar because they kind of remind me of each other in terms of how they play, but obviously Zubac is just better at everything else a lot more in terms of the outside, except for the outside shooting. So I like his game a lot. I think he would make a lot of sense here. And he's just a vet that wants to win. And I think he got a little bit of a bad rap because of what went down in Phoenix. And I think the whole Draymond Green thing went down. But like, there was reports that just came out this offseason where they were talking about Mike Budenholzer was drunk in the locker room. And like he was the one like calling out guys, and the whole entire Phoenix Suns roster at that point with the Bradley Beal, Kevin Durant, Devin Booker group with Nurkic. I mean, that whole team was just, they were toxic. So I think that when he went to Charlotte, people liked him there. He went to Utah, people liked him there. Before that, Portland, they really liked him. So I think that he might be a little bit better than his reputation in Phoenix, but I still have somebody higher than him at number 1, but I like him at number 2.
Okay. What do you think dollar-wise, though? This is a guy who's coming off making $19.3 million. He'll be 32 years old. I'm not necessarily entirely sure what he'll make, but he is coming off of a good year. So where do you really kind of put
Nurkic's but it was limited because of the injuries, right?
Yeah.
Like, I actually think he's more in that veteran minimum at this
point.
Oh,
I disagree, but at the same point, look, if that's the case, great. But I think that he showed enough where, like, sure, you're not going to make that same money, but like, I don't know, could he fetch a portion of the mid level? Maybe.
Yeah. Maybe 6 or 7 million. I don't know. I'm trying to think of like what other players have signed recently that have been like above the minimum that would make sense, because he might find a place where he can start somewhere. I don't know. Like, you could probably make the case that you like him more than DeAndre Ayton, right? He just got 2 for $8 million. So maybe somewhere along those lines, $8 million a year. I don't know. I don't know why I view him as a better minimum. I just feel like
I don't know why either.
Nobody really wanted him though. That he was viewed as one of the worst contracts when he's actually signed that.
I agree, because he wasn't worth $15 to $19 million. But
it was a salary dump to Phoenix, and then it was a salary dump to Charlotte. And then when he got traded to the Jazz, it was for Colin Sexton. Was that right?
I think so. I believe so, yes.
And like at that point, they were just trying to get off Colin Sexton's money. So he's always been involved in these salary dumps. And the only reason he even got significant playing time was because of the Walker Kessler injury. So I just kind of wonder, like, maybe it's somewhere in between where we're both thinking. I don't know, but it'll be interesting. There's not a lot of centers, like out there for people to go out and get in terms of like, this guy could start for us. He's only 31. So, I mean, that does play a little bit into his like favor of like maybe looking for a bigger contract, but there's not a lot of cap space out there. That's the whole point. And he's going to, I think if he wants to win, he would probably need to take a significant pay cut to go to a championship level team, but he could go back to the Jazz too. I've seen that the Utah Jazz on SI, they were saying they would like to have him back. So that's interesting.
Yeah. I mean, that's good. I mean, yeah, for him to average if you can get a guy who just averaged a double and shot 50% from the field and 35% from three, whatever, limited sample size, sign him now. So I think that would be awesome. I do think that, he gets more than that, not a lot, but somewhere, like I said, somewhere in between, a portion of the mid level. He's not going to be a mid level guy by any means, but could he get $5 to $8 million per year? It's possible. So we'll see. But I don't have him on my list because I just didn't think that it would work.
Let me just
salary wise, player that what do you got?
I was gonna say just real quick, because like when he started in 36 of 41 games this year. So when he didn't start, his points were 7, 13, 7, 4, and 8, and his rebounds were 6, 4. He actually had 13 in the game he came off the bench. 17 minutes, 13 rebounds, 11 rebounds one game. So like still a really good rebounder, but like point wise wasn't even putting up close to the numbers he was putting up when he was a starter. So I think that does matter a little bit, unless you view him as a guy that you want to see start.
the kids will forget, but there was a time where it was Nurkic and Jokic. And it was like, who's the guy in Denver? And I remember it was like, all right, they got a good problem on their hands. They got two young up and coming centers, and obviously Denver made the right choice. They sent Nurkic to Portland, and the rest is history. Jokic has been just absolutely incredible. But number one on my list, it's a name that we've flirted with for quite some time. I struggle to put him number one, but I still think that it makes sense because I don't think he's going to get anywhere near what he was just making. That's Robert Williams. Robert Williams made $12 million last year on the final year of his contract. He's an unrestricted free agent. I feel like he's had injuries in his career. I just think that like there'll be teams that are interested, but I don't think there's really going to be anyone throwing like $8 million or more at him. I really do think that Robert Williams, I know I keep throwing out this like $5 million number, but like I think he'd be like someone who is a portion of the mid-level. It could be anywhere between $5 to $6 million, somewhere around there, on maybe, I don't know, maybe like a 2-year deal. He's always been a really good rim protector and shot blocker. And I think that if you have a center rotation of, Zubac, Robert Williams, and Jay Huff, it's pretty decent. And I think that, Robert Williams has shown flashes at times of being a much better player, but I think he probably just has like bad knees or whatever the injuries are that have kind of dragged him down. But I've always been intrigued.
Yeah, so I didn't have Robert Williams on my list. I had Thomas
Okay.
Bryant, number one for me. I'm
No,
just
you don't. Yeah. Okay. I wanted to give like a little tip of the hat, but I was like, I can't even put him at honorable mention, but I will always respect Game 6, Thomas Bryant.
I did put him on my honorable mentions because I love Thomas Bryant, and I feel like he's still better than Jay Huff. Give me Thomas Bryant.
Hey,
He might not be. I'm just blinded by what I saw the previous season from him in that Game 6. But no, what I will say with Time Lord, I mean, a 7'6" wingspan, Foch, and like
crazy.
my biggest fear is obviously the health because
Of course, it's real. It's a real
he
concern.
played 120 games in the last 4 seasons out of a possible 328. That's just regular season,
about
not
a
even
season and
including
a
the
half.
playoffs.
Yeah,
So,
but he played about a season and a half out of that that stretch. So that's
yeah.
rough.
And I mean, he played 51 last year, which is a big uptick for him. The problem with him is how much is he going to want? How much does he deserve? And what opportunity is he looking for? Because I mean, I don't know if you saw this or not, but I saw it on Twitter where like the Lakers could potentially bring him in as their starting center, and it's like
Lakers are interested in everybody.
well, but they obviously have some questions at center because clearly
Sure.
JJ Redick hates DeAndre Ayton and
Yes,
the way he plays.
absolutely. I think that
So-
those two are probably polar opposites in real life. I would just imagine that they pretty much don't have anything in common outside of the game of basketball. That's what I would imagine.
And I think if you look at the way Luka Doncic likes to play, Robert Williams would be the perfect type of big to play with him. This is a guy that loves to play in the dunker spot, and that's what Luka Doncic likes to kind of have. He's pretty good in the pick and roll. Honestly, like I was a little bit surprised. It's not a large sample size, but he did shoot 39% from 3 last year, which is really that's weird. But it's almost 71% from the field. Like he probably had to lead the league in like field goal percentage because he just dunks the basketball. Like that's what he does. And he lives in that dunker spot. He keeps offensive rebounds, or he keeps offensive possessions alive with rebounding. The 1.5 blocks to me is like, that's just really hard to replace. And like, if you're looking for the Isaiah Jackson replacement, that's an upgrade. This is clearly the guy. And he is significantly better than anybody else the Pacers have in terms of their backups behind Zubac. So I would love to see Time Lord on the Pacers. The money thing is that I have no idea money-wise what he will make next year. Even if it's like part of the mid-level exception, I would consider it.
Yeah.
But I just, for example, like I think a lot of people are expecting Chris Middleton to get more money than he's going to get. I think Middleton's more of like an actual veteran minimum guy because of how old he is, and honestly, I think he's going to want to choose where he goes. Once again.
I think that's definitely really important to him. I see. I mean, how many times can I say $5 million? But like, I just see it as like, I can't. I think at this point, I'm like, all right, I got to pick a different number. But I just see like
6.
Middleton as like, hey, like he could go anywhere for the mid-level. I mean, I'm sorry, I meant the minimum. You can go anywhere for the minimum contract. But like, is someone going to sprinkle a little bit more? I don't think it's a big deal. I brought it up the other episode. He's made like $350 million in his career. $1 million shouldn't be the difference.
No.
But I think it's going to have to be, he's going to have his picking of like the right situation. Where can you get a ring? Where can you really contribute? And I don't think that Middleton at this point is concerned about making, the difference between $4 and $6 million at this point. I don't think so.
Yeah, so like let's just say, for example, the Pacers, their offseason was, let's get Robert Williams III at
Yep.
like $6 million a year for the next 3 years, so they pay him $18 million. I don't know if he'll take that, but let's just say he does, and then you sign Middleton to the minimum. Like, you're going to be right close to that first apron, but like,
solid offseason.
that's a really good offseason to kind of solidify your bench, get you some guys that can do some things, and you don't feel like you're really trading anybody away just to make room, unless you let Potter go at that point just because you want to keep some extra money available for you. But I just think that kind of makes sense. And, there's probably other options they're going to look at before that, but I just think that upgrading at center and getting a scoring guy off the bench is what they need to do. The point guard stuff is like the last thing they probably could add, like a minimum guy, maybe on a non-guaranteed contract, something like that. That would be what I would do heading into training camp. But overall, I just think that we're both in agreement here that it does make a lot of sense for Robert Williams III if they can get him. But honorable mention-wise, I told you I had Thomas Bryant, I told you I had Andre Drummond. The last one I had on this list, he's an old guy, but he's still like moving.
I know who you're talking about.
It's Brook Lopez.
Okay, I thought you were going Kevin Love. Because I like went to it and I'm like, and I'm like, you know what? I just feel like we don't need Kevin Love at this point in his career. Like, this team now has veterans. It's not the Pacers team of the past where like we needed someone like that. But Brook Lopez, just at this point, I mean, he's like 40. Like he is like
he's 38. He'll be 39 next year.
Okay.
But like, think about what he did for the Clippers last year. Like he was still moving around and hitting shots and doing things. And I was like, not saying he's great, but like as a depth piece, like.
Oh yeah, I mean, look, Brook Lopez has been around the block. He's definitely, huge. But I think for to be almost 39 years old and still average 8.5 points per game, and you could still stretch the floor for sure. Yeah, you could do worse. I wonder, how maybe he still played 70. Wow, this is honestly crazy.
I'm saying.
Tip the hat. 75 games he played, and the previous year 80, and the previous year 79, and the previous year 78, and he started just about all those games.
Yeah.
He started all of those games in those 3 years that I mentioned for Milwaukee. Last year he started 40 out of 75. So like I'm impressed with how he's held up based on like if you look at his stats, I mean, there's a New Jersey logo next to the Nets. That's how long he's been playing. I definitely remember when he got drafted. Same draft as Roy Hibbert. I definitely remember where it was like, man, like those are two of the bigs in that draft. Brook Lopez still going strong, pretty solid.
Hey, former teammate with Zubac too.
Yeah. Yes, that is right. That is right.
Last year.
Season. So yeah, for Brook Lopez, I think he's honorable mention worthy, but not something that I think there would be questions at times to know, like, could he still hold up? He has, but you're not waiting for the shoe to fall off. But yeah, I definitely probably would have a little bit surprised if he was in your official top 5.
Oh, yeah. No. He was my last addition. I mean, I was debating between him and Zach Collins, if that makes you feel any better.
Zach, I know. I saw him and like, look, Zach Collins is more talented than some of the players we brought up, but it's just like, there's just something about him.
I hate Zach Collins.
I know. And it's like,
face in the NBA. Like, he looks like a Disney center.
The Pacers passed on him in the draft, which wasn't a good move, and they took TJ Leaf. But I also feel like they've been rumored in the past, like, could they go after Zach Collins or do that? And I was never interested. Zach Collins was like the classic example of being like, he should have never been like the number 2 option on a team, and that's what he was in Atlanta. And I feel like, I don't know what he'll sign for, but I think his days of making, whatever it was, $20+ million are over.
Well, here's what I'll say. The Pacers did not pass on him. He was already off the board at 10.
He was the 10th overall pick?
He was the 10th overall pick. This is where Portland traded 15 and 20.
Oh, my. You know what? I'm thinking of John Collins. That's exactly what I was thinking about, because John Collins was the pick after TJ Leaf. And I never had any interest. That's what I was saying, the number 2 option on the Hawks and all that stuff like that. Zach Collins, I'm all right. I'm just, he never did.
It's like, what are you talking about? He was the Pacers. I was like, did he go 20th? And I was like, no, that was the Harry Giles, Justin Jackson trade for Zach Collins.
Yeah,
I
Zach
remember I was
Collins.
like, oh, Harry Giles is an exciting young player.
You did have interest. You did. I knew those
I
legs.
wanted OG, though. That was my guy. I wanted OG at 18. I thought he was the guy. I really like Bam Adebayo, if you don't remember.
Yeah. I mean,
I
yeah.
did love
No,
Bam.
I do remember that. And Bam's lived up to it. I mean, worst guy to ever score 80+ points, but it's got to be someone. But yeah, no, I do think that there's been some interesting names over the years. Zach Collins, before he had that injury, before he tore his ACL, was on his way to having a little bit of a better career. But I just feel like at this point, he's just solely just a backup center in this league.
Dude, that was a really good draft. I know we got to close things out here, but I'm looking at the second round here. You got Dylan Brooks, Isaiah Hartenstein, Thomas Bryant.
Wow.
I'm trying to look. Okay, so the Pacers, I think they had the 35th pick and traded it because they had Ivan Rabb. Remember him? They traded him away. Then they ended up getting Ike Bogu that year in the draft.
I remember they took him and TJ Lee both out of UCLA, and I remember being like, man, Ike, I don't know, he was coming off of I think a torn ACL or an injury or something.
Edmund Sumner was that draft.
What was that? Edmund Sumner?
Edmund Sumner, yeah.
That was the best pick that we had out of that, or best pickup, we'll say.
Yeah. Look at this into the first round, though. Josh Hart, Derek White, Tony Bradley, Kyle Kuzma, the last 4 picks. And then you had some Caleb Swanigans. Ugh, terrible.
Dude, that's why, yeah. That's why it's always tough where it's I know, exactly. Yeah. So when people are like, oh, what are you going to do with the 27th overall pick? Every now and then, you could find a solid player. It's not expected that you're going to find a really good player, but a lot of the names that you just mentioned from, I don't know, 25 on are making really good money and contributing big time. I mean, Isaiah Hartenstein, NBA champion. Josh Hart could be on his way to NBA champion. There's, whatever. Kuzma won a ring and has, gotten paid in this. He's a little sketch at times on the court. But, everybody remembers Kuzma's game where he literally didn't contribute. Didn't contribute a stat? Or maybe he just didn't score at all against the Pacers. I remember it was it was
a goose egg. He had no stats in 20 minutes.
Yeah. That was incredible. He had one of the worst series we've seen a player have against the Pacers. It was amazing. It was I think through 2 games he hadn't scored, or through 6 or 7 quarters. It was getting really bad.
Yeah, John Collins, like you mentioned, right after TJ leave, Jared Allen, OG Anunoby, there's 7 guys in the first round that you would have much rather had over a TJ Lee.
I mean, you could probably almost make the argument almost anybody in the first round. I mean, I'm sure there's
there's some pretty bad names.
I'm sure there is, but
I don't. Terrence Ferguson, Tyler Lydon, Terrence Ferguson, Harry Giles, DJ Wilson, Justin Patton. Oh man, Luke Kennard was in this draft. We talked about him recently. Dennis Smith Jr. was in this draft. Frank Ntilikina, 8th overall.
Man, it's just that's a big
man. All right, Facci. Well, anyway, there's a lot of players in the NBA Finals in this draft, so interesting stuff there. But with that being said, Pacer Nation, hope you guys enjoyed our positions of free agent targets here for the Pacers. So we'll look at. Let us know what you guys think, and after we've done this whole list now, let us know who your top 2 would be. Who you want to see the Pacers go after. So. With that being said, Facci, if you're hoping the Pacers are a little bit aggressive in free agency and look to add some talent to this roster, hit us with those 3 words.
Let's go, Pacers.